What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you've subscribed on iTunes or Google Play or one of the many other ways you can check out the show, or on your Android apps or whatever. It doesn't matter. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Blake Schultz. I met this man on the Comedy Button Facebook group. We get into the weeds and discuss video gaming and also music and movies, and then try to get back to video gaming, and then random game stories. So it's all over the place, but hopefully you guys enjoy the episode. If you guys do, feel free to give me a rating on iTunes or Google Play. Let people know what you think about the show. If you guys like these longer episodes or you prefer shorter episodes, let me know as well. Definitely want to get feedback and make the show as best I can for everybody. So if you guys ever want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast. Without further ado, let's get things started with Blake Schultz. Do you remember what got you interested in gaming in the first place? Do you remember, was it a friend? Was it a parent? Was it a kiosk at a store? Do you remember what initially got you started?
So, for me, that's kind of a tough question because I've been kind of gaming as long as I can remember. And my earliest memory of it, and I know it's not my first because I can remember being impressed by something, was The Legend of Zelda, the original one, on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And when you put in your name, I was like, oh my God, I'm putting in my name. I was like 3. Right. I was blown away by this whole overhead, blah, blah, blah. What I'm told by my parents is that they got an NES basically when I was born as a gift. And that just for the longest time, I would either be watching my dad play it. Once I was kind of old enough, I would start plugging it in by myself and playing it. So it was kind of just always there. It's always kind of just been something that I default to, which is great because I find a lot of times the busier I get, the older I get, that it's nice to have that thing to kind of just fall into that's yours. It's becomes comfort food almost.
Right.
So my earliest thing, I mean, to answer it, I guess it is my parents. Like my dad had it. He always talks about Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt and just hearing everybody in his dorm playing different parts of the levels. Last Christmas when I was home, I brought the classic NES to show him, and it was just, you could just watch him going down memory lane of like, oh, and he can still do that World 3 turtle trick where you bounce on him and you get the infinite life. I can't do it to save my life. My dad's a 56-year-old man. I've been playing the game once a year since I was 2.
It's like muscle memory. It's just, when you get something that good, or if it just leaves that big of an imprint in your head, that'll happen. Like it'll be weird, but you can always do it for as long as you're alive, basically. So, I mean, some people feel that way with games. Some people feel that way with just tons of other things. Like, I've recently felt that with skateboarding. Like there was one trick that I did, and I haven't done it in years because I got super fat and couldn't skateboard. Because when you're fat, you can't fucking skateboard.
Oh, I was saying that so recently. I was like, I miss skateboarding, but now I'm real tall and lanky, and I'm not the spring chicken I was back in the day.
Oh yeah, I just got big ass fat dude, and I was like, that falling when you're 300 pounds sucks, so don't do that. So, all of a sudden, I did one trick though that I was like, man, I haven't done this trick in like years. Let me try it, and I did it first try, and way too good. I was like, whoa, that was really weird because it was just like I had it right away, and I was like, it wasn't sketchy. I didn't land it and kind of like wobble. It was like damn perfect. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird that I just did that. And again, it's just like you said, that muscle memory, that like good memory, or just, whatever it was, but just I did it. And I was really, again, I looked at the guys I was just like at the park with. I was just like, dude, I haven't done that trick in like 5 years. And I just did that. And they're like, fucking could have fooled me. It looked really good. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, I do that with, I did martial arts back when I still lived in Chicago. So like 5 years ago, and I had my black belt, and my now ex at one point was like, show me something. And I just ran through this thing and was like, I didn't even know that. I feel like an operative who's lost his memory, and you're like, why am I good at Kung Fu?
You were Neo in the Matrix. I know Kung Fu.
Right. It's like, I'm not flexible anymore. I've got like a beer gut going on. I look like Steve Rogers before the serum was put in. Like, you shouldn't be able to move like that. And then you do, and you're like, oh my. Okay.
Yeah.
That's in there somewhere.
I still got that somewhere in my head that I could do those things. But yeah, I mean, and it's cool too that you brought that NES Classic. And I think that's probably the number one reason why it sold so well is because people now who have money, I mean, granted, it's not expensive, but like people now, that was like just nostalgic. I mean, of course, Nintendo was smart because people have been doing ROMs and all this shit forever. And they were just like, hey, why don't we just do this and make money off of it and put it in a nice little box that looks like the old console, and then fucking explosion of sales.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those things when they kept getting up and saying we didn't think the demand was going to be this high.
Shut up.
I was like, how? After the Smash Brothers GameCube controller went away, after the Wii, after really all of it, every single amiibo that came out, some of those are for Little Mac was a hard to find amiibo. When was the last time somebody talked about Little Mac?
Right.
And you can think that a box with some of the Citizen Kane of video games in it,
right?
People were just going to be like, whatever.
Yeah. No, I still firmly believe Nintendo doesn't like money because they make things, but just not enough. And then, then all of a sudden amiibos become what my brother-in-law referred to them as eBay exclusive, which I laugh hysterically because that shit's real funny. But again, Nintendo, it's like, hey, Nintendo.
Some pains to get some of those amiibos.
Like, hey, Nintendo, real quick, you guys could make money off this shit if you just fucking made enough of them. Like, just
take the risk. I get being like, we don't know the demand, let's hold back production a bit, but maybe this time, like, I don't know. Once you have the mold, those don't cost that much to make, so just put them all out and see what happens. Worst case scenario, you don't make money. Guess what? In the Wii U area, you didn't make it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. No, like, I will say, like, it just, Nintendo, but that's the thing with Nintendo. They're just terrified to, like, make too many, I guess, so they hold back so much. Whereas, like, every other company, Sony and Microsoft are like, we will put this fucking thing out forever if you guys will keep buying it. We don't give a shit. And then they were like, by the way, we're discontinuing the NES Classic. And everybody's just like, huh? Like, what?
This was always meant to be limited. When did you say that?
Yeah. Does it on the box say limited edition? Does it say in advertisements while supplies last? Did you have to fucking mail in 10 UPCs and fill out a shipping form to get? No, you didn't. You could fucking walk in Walmart and just go buy one. But no, like, it's just weird. But again, I will say credit to Nintendo with the Switch. It was weird. It was hard to find at first. I walked into Best Buy, and again, it's Black Friday, whatever. I walked into Best Buy Saturday, and there was a fucking pile of Switches standing there. And I was like, good for you guys for not fucking this up.
I had a girl text me today who was like, oh, I got really addicted to Mario Odyssey. And I was like, that makes sense. She was like, so I'm going to try to get a Switch. And I was like, all right, good luck.
No,
and right before we started recording, she texted me and was like, I got my Switch and I'm playing Mario Odyssey. And I was like, what beautiful, wonderful world am I living in?
Yeah, I walked into, like, I went shopping, obviously. I walked to the Best Buy, and I'm not kidding you. There was a straight-ass pile of Switches. There was probably in that pile, I'm going to guess 40 to 50, just hanging out. And I was just like, oh, good for you guys, because you didn't royally screw this up. And then I even went into Target and I saw the Mario Odyssey bundles, and I was like, oh shit, look at you guys. You only made them for the busiest shopping day ever, but good for you.
I mean, it's good because I remember I worked at GameStop from 2006 until 2010. And so that meant my first holiday season was the release of the Wii and the PS3.
I'm so sorry.
And those were some dark days because we got 6 Wiis on launch. So our midnight opening was done in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And after that, I mean, we did pre-orders for the second shipment that wasn't showing up till after Christmas.
Yep.
The Mario Kart wheel was impossible to find. You could only get another Wiimote by buying Wii Play, which was a bad game.
Yeah. Well, again, Nintendo liked to inflate the game sales. Like, I hate that Wii Play is on a list of best-selling games ever because of the fucking remote. Like, thanks, Nintendo, like, there should be an asterisk next to that. Like,
hey,
really
how is there not? How is there not just like, this wasn't a game, people wanted the remote?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually was lucky enough to get out right before all that happened. I worked at a video game store from like 2004 to 2006, but it was a summer of 2006 before all the chaos happened. So I was like, I got out of there right at a good time, and then I became that asshole that called every game store trying to get a Wii, so it's okay. I had at least patience for the people that called and was like, what do you want? We don't have Wiis. I'm like, I get it. I used to be that guy. I get you. So
those are scary, scary days. I could tell you some stories of just we had one more left, and we weren't supposed to take calls. Like, people weren't supposed to be able to call and be like, I got it.
Right.
And a coworker didn't know that, and someone called and was like, put it aside.
No.
And I didn't know that.
No.
So then somebody else walked up and was like, one Wii, and I handed it to him, and the next guy behind him was like, ooh, I called about one of those. And my coworker was like, oh, that one's yours.
Oh.
And I seemed like, I don't know what to do. Because the other person was like, well, I called and they said you can't call ahead. And I was like, you can't. So here you go.
Right.
I sold it to the person who was first. I stuck by the store rule and was just like, that's what they said. I'm sorry, buddy. I'll let you yell at me and tell me that I'm the Grinch and that I ruined Christmas.
Right.
I'll take those blows for a while, but you'll calm down. You'll get over it. Like,
I was gonna say, I think the only way to figure out who gets the Wii is just to have them fight to the death right then in the store. Just like you gotta fucking fight it out. Like, sorry, does Timmy want a good Christmas or not?
That was also one of my favorite years because we started doing a tally mark because so many people came into our store, and this was like I've always been a big Nintendo person, so I had a GameCube when I was 13, 14 in high school, and everybody was like, it's a kiddie system, what are you doing? Get a PS2, get an Xbox, blah, 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 blah. So when the Wii came out, I decided to do a tally mark of people who called about the Wii and people who called about the PS3 because nobody cared about the PS3 that first year. It was expensive. The best game was Resistance 1, which wasn't very good.
Right.
And it just wasn't great. It got and then later director's cut ports and everything was on the 360 and it worked out. But I remember at the end of that holiday, we had like 50 plus marks for the Wii. We had 10 for the PS3, and we made a second category that had 24. I remember this for the Nintendo 64 because that was like 2 or 3 years when GameStop stopped taking anything pre that generation.
Right.
And of course, around Christmas, people were for whatever reason just calling and being like, "I need some N64 stuff."
That's fun.
And I remember at some point, once we were around like 5 calls, I was like, put in 64 on that board. I want to see if we can beat the PS3 calls with a system that's a decade old.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I remember GameStop because that was I used to work at Game Crazy, and like that was their thing where they were like, they had all Nintendo, all the old school stuff. And I mean, we always had those people. The worst thing though is when we had people bring in a box full of NES games, and GameStop or Game Crazy never based trade-in prices off rarity. They just based it off what they sold it for. So the thing is, they were selling Chrono Trigger for $10. They didn't give a fuck.
That's crazy.
They weren't basing things off rarity. So the problem is that people would show up and they'd like expect all this fucking money for certain games, and I'd be like, no, we don't do that shit here, bro. Like, people like, sorry, we have to take 700 Mario Duck Hunts and 600, Mike Tyson's Punch Outs and like whatever. But I mean, they never gave a shit about rarity. So I mean, we had people that didn't care, but then had people that did care. I was just like, sorry, whatever. Too bad.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we could have probably an entire podcast on video game stories. I want to do that one day. I want to like find people that worked at video game stores and just share the most ridiculous stories.
I would do that forever. Was Game Crazy that was connected to That was connected
Hollywood
to another
Video.
game. Hollywood Video. That's right.
Yeah. That place was that place was interesting. It was fun. It was just me, my brother-in-law, and my friend Mike, who's actually been on the show before. And it was awesome. It was just us 3 that worked there. It was the best time ever. But yeah, we'll when I launch that podcast, I'll let you know. We'll get all over that.
I'll do that. I'll co-host that with you. That would be awesome.
So then you continued NES. Obviously, were your parents cool with playing with you and stuff then? Like, did you actually do a lot of co-op stuff with them?
I did. So my mom, less so than my dad, but my mom would. I remember this very well when the Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube came out. Mm-hmm. I bought it and I put it in. I was playing up in my room, and my mom came in, and I was expecting to like do your homework, whatever. I was like in 7th grade, and I didn't do my homework because it's pointless.
Right.
And she was like, "Was that Sonic music?" And I was like, "It was Sonic music." And me, her, and my dad, and I'm an only child, so that's kind of it. just played through Sonic 1 that night.
It
was awesome. So, and my dad bought a Game Boy specifically so he could get Pokemon Blue and like trade and play with me.
That's awesome.
And he ended up getting super into it. He got into the cards and would play and would collect, and he was really all about, he really liked Charizard, and his whole thing was like, I'm not going to catch anybody else. He did a whole run where he's like, I'm just going to make my Charmander the best, and it's going to kill everybody, and it's going to be great.
That's so funny, until you run into a water type, and then I think it's fucking wrecked.
Right. I was like, that's the first gym is a rock gym.
Right. You're like, you better learn some other moves, bro. You can't be throwing that fire at him.
Yeah, right? He was really into that. He took me to both the Pokemon first movie and the second movie. They let me out. We didn't go to school that day to go see him.
So awesome.
Yeah, they're into it. Less so now. I mean, they're both in their 50s. Like, I got my dad a mini Super Nintendo, and he played with it a bit when I was home for Thanksgiving. But I think now he's kind of just like, yep, it's here and it's fine. Like, it's.
I mean, I would hope when I get older that I'm still into it as much. But I also, like, my father-in-law is the same way. Like, he played games, like, with my wife. He played games with my brother-in-law. Him and my brother-in-law actually opened their own video game store. So they had, like, their own store and, like, all this shit. And now he's gotten to the point where he's just like, I have 1,000 other things to do, but he still plays games occasionally, you know? Like, he's like, I bought Horizon, and I was like, good for you, because that shit is awesome. And you need to play it. And like, yeah, he's like, he just basically goes off what my brother-in-law tells him. He'll just be like, Nick told me The Last of Us is good. What do you think? I'm like, yeah, go play that immediately. Like, please.
I just picked up Horizon for $20 on Black Friday because I had sat on it for a minute.
That's what he did as well. And I'm like, good for you.
I played it for 20 minutes, and my friends, when I was home in Chicago this week, it was like, I need this. I only didn't get it because it came out like the same week as Breath of the Wild, I think.
It did. It was like a week or two before, but it was just like,
yeah,
it was really, I'm not going to say poor timing, but yeah.
It's not bad timing. Those are just, if you're playing everything, that's two very big games at once. It's kind of like, I don't know, if there was a week where like the Avengers and Star Wars came out on Friday, you'd be like, well, I'm going to see both of these, but they're both giant blockbusters.
Right. No, that's what happened with me at Shadow of War and Assassin's Creed. I chose Shadow of War because I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm going to play 40 hours of... I think I've ended up playing like 50 or 60 hours of Shadow of War. There's no way I'm going to play that much. And then 2 weeks later, going to go play Assassin's Creed and do the same open world, check all the boxes bullshit again. I'm like, no, I'm going to like just... I got it for Black Friday, but I'm holding it for myself for Christmas because my wife doesn't know when games go on sale, so I just buy them and I keep them for gifts for myself. But like, I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, I had to choose one or the other, and that's what I ended. Like, that day when everything amazing came out, I chose Mario because I'm smart. And Mario's good. And now I got a ton of games for Black Friday. I got Wolfenstein 2 because I could not wait to play that game. I was like, I'm not waiting until Christmas. Like, here's the other games I'm going.
Switch release. I'm pushing for that Switch release for it. I feel like I've got to support the M-rated third-party games on the Nintendo system.
Yeah, good job for Nintendo. However, I have an Xbox One X, and sorry.
Yep. I had that same thought. It was like $25, and I was like, I could just put this on a 4K TV.
Yep.
It was gorgeous.
Yep.
But I kind of want to bring it to work because sometimes we have long Fridays, and it'd be real nice to do that.
It is cool. Yeah, no, like, I mean, good for Nintendo for putting not just Nintendo shit on there. Like, Bethesda
is all about this system.
Did they throw them like a check with a blank check? Like, just please put your games on our system. Because like Bethesda's like the best third party developer I've seen for them. They're just like,
oh yeah.
Like Doom was on the Switch. I was like, and like my friend Mike actually told me, he's like, dude, Doom doesn't suck on the Switch. I'm like, no shit. He's like, no, it's actually not bad. I'm like, oh, that's pleasant to hear, instead of just, it runs choppy, it runs framey, it's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, that's good.
Well, we did what? Really 3 generations. Like the GameCube, it was hard to port over to because they had less buttons, and then the Wii, everything needs to be downscaled. It had motion controls. And then the Wii U, if people were there, it was still downscaling. Like
even the 64 though, because the cartridges compared to CD-ROMs, like even 64. Because I remember I was PlayStation kid, but Tony Hawk, I remember that being a big deal when it came to 64 because they were like, holy shit, it's actually coming out on 64. That's amazing. Like,
I didn't notice it on the N64 because I was 7 in 1996 when that came out. So I was like, I owned an N64 and that's where it ended. It really wasn't until like 99 when the PS2 showed up that I even like thought about other things. Like we also had a Genesis and that was it. And that was my world. So like now I listen back to their podcasts or histories of whatever, and it's like, oh, the golden era for Nintendo third party stuff was the SNES, and then all of that went away.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense narratively, but when you're like less than 10 and you're like, it's Tony Hawk, and it's that's a game that very much for me is like all the music I like stems from that game.
It 100% does for me as well.
Pop punk, ska, everything came from it. Yeah. It's crazy.
And yeah, like it was just weird for Nintendo at the time just to like have a lot of things being ported over. Like N64 was when it got really hard, but like it's funny because obviously, so it sounds like you were a Genesis kid because obviously you didn't have a Super. I didn't either. I had the one friend who played it, but it sucks because I look back and I remember having good times with my Genesis. But then I also look back because if you look at like top 10 games from 1990 to 1995, not too many Sega games are going to be on the list.
No.
And it's really sad because I'm like, did I fuck up? Did I do this wrong? But then I was like, nah, I had Mortal Kombat with Blood. I didn't fuck up. I was good.
Yep. I had Mortal Kombat with Blood. I had Sonic 2, but I had both. I had the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. I was that kid on the block.
Oh, you were fancy.
Yeah, but I still like, I didn't buy too much stuff. Like when I got the classic Super Nintendo and was like, oh, I've never played Secret of Mana or Final Fantasy 3. This is awesome.
That was the problem with me too, is because I mean I was basically a dumb kid who was just like, I want things to move fast and blow up and have pretty colors. I was like, strategy. The fuck wants to stand there and think? Taking my time and thinking. Who the fuck does that? I just want to run right and blow shit up, and that's what Sonic did. And I was like, yay. But no, like now. It's funny because the SNES Classic, I worry because I think about like that system had treasures on there that are still people's favorite games ever. When 64 comes around, if Nintendo doesn't like an N64 Classic, I'm gonna be like, you're gonna be stretching to get a. All
right, so I've heard this debate a million times where people are like, if they do the mini N64, you got to pretty much discount everything from Rareware. You're not going to get GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and DK64 because of rights and all that nonsense. They might be able to work some legal mumbo jumbo. I don't know, and everyone's like, they'll get out like 10 games, and I'm like, man, I can call you out 10 games on my right now off the top of my head that I would play for the rest of my life if they did that. Like, I will concede not as many things came out. That thing launched with Wave Race and Mario 64. But when you launch with a game that is in the conversation of best games of all time forever, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, what if they never made more Star Wars movies? They'd still have made 3 of the most talked about movies ever.
Right. No, and I'm not saying like N64 didn't have good games. I just like, how many games are on the SNES Classic though? The 20, like 30?
21 if you count Star Fox 2.
Sure. So I mean, the only thing is just that's like what we were discussing though. That's when the third party support, like Square bounced. Square was just like, PlayStation, sorry guys. Like when you start looking at like what good games are on the SNES Classic, some of the number one things, Mario RPG, Secret of Mana, like, and then you start going like, oh shit, like, what really good RPG, because you want to have a mix of games, which they so far have done a good job, like. And
that's a good point, that the N64 does not have that mix. There is no, I can't name you one turn-based RPG that's not Pokemon Stadium, and I don't even know if that counts.
Right. I mean, like, I hate when people refer to Pokemon as like my first turn-based RPG. Like, go to hell. Pokemon's fun.
Pokemon's great, but Stadium, if they don't do the transfer pack stuff, you pick a team and you fight. Right.
Useless. Nobody's going to want to play Pokemon Stadium unless you can transfer stuff. But like, that's the only thing I'm sitting there thinking like, SNES Classic had a good variety. There's, your racers. And I mean, you could say, oh, we can just put Mario Kart on there. I'm like, stop. stop. I get it. Like, you could just keep putting Mario and all those on there. But the good thing is, at least NES and SNES have had that good mix of third-party support, and that's where 64 was, like, starting to fall apart with third-party support. And I'm just like, well, let's see what happens. But also, Nintendo could just keep making NES and SNES classic and not give a fuck and just sell that. So they don't care.
Yeah, I have a friend at work whose theory is that they won't do a mini in 64, but they'll do a mini NES 2 and like a mini SNES 2. And I was like, I don't know if I'm into that, because one, part of those mini systems for me is the like action figure collector part of me, where there's a little tiny toy mold, and if I just have 2 NESs on my desk, I'm like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they might do is they'll do the Nintendo thing like they do with the 3DS, where they'll make the first one, but then the new one comes out and it's got, 6 foot longer controller cables like it fucking should. And it has wireless controllers.
I don't know, wireless, right?
10 more games no, I'm sorry. They'd have to hold off the wireless controllers for the third model, the third model that they'll resell you on. But then they'll add 10 more games. I could see Nintendo doing that. And then, but again, who cares, right? I mean, everybody's going to complain about something, but that's fine.
Right.
That's fine. So then Genesis, Sonic, co-op stuff with your parents, which is awesome. Obviously, you also mentioned portable, so like you played Game Boy and stuff with your dad and everything. Did you? So then, when you were continuing down the road and everything, did you got a 64? But like you said, you were also fancy too, though. You had Genesis and Super. Did you have both PlayStation and 64 as well? Then?
No, the N64 generation, I don't even know. This is so embarrassing because I love video games so much. I didn't realize that the PlayStation was that closely to the N64 until I played the Crash Bandicoot collection on the PS4.
Right.
Like, it wasn't part of my narrative at all. I was just going to school and coming home and playing the N64, and I wasn't really following trades or magazines. The internet barely existed, so my scope for it was what was in front of me, and what was in front of me at that time was Mario 64, and then in 1999 Pokemon, and that's where I lived.
Yeah,
which was fine, because I don't think, I mean, I was doing a lot. I was like playing like Little League baseball, and I skateboarded a lot. I don't know if I could have really crammed in like 2 systems at that point in my life.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
even
like,
means.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, like me, for example, I usually just chose one, hoping to have a friend somewhere down the road that would have the other one, so I got the chance to experience both, which I think is still the best way to do it. Majority of my friends, though, were all like, we would kind of focus on one system. So, like, the neighborhood kids that I would fucking hang out with every single day, we would just be like, all right, what are we picking? And, we'd just look at games and we'd be like, all right, all of us are going PlayStation. And then we would have to do the route where, like, oh, you're going to get this game, so I'm going to get this game, and then we could trade up or whatever and, borrow each other's games or whatever. But, yeah, and then you always had the one friend who was like, I have a Super, or I have a 64, and we're like, hell yeah, we're going to go over there and play No Mercy and play it until our eyes bleed, because that shit is awesome.
Yeah, I think everyone I knew had an N64. Like, I didn't have any, like, PlayStation 1 friends. It was the PS2 is what split us.
Right.
That was where it became, it was the GameCube and the PS2 and, like, kind of the Xbox is when really my friends split, which was very, very
It's like going to high school. It's like going to high school and getting into cliques. It's like,
well, that's exactly what it was. Because we 7th and 8th grade, I went to Springman in Glenview, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And they separated that school into teams. So you would get put on like Explorers, which I was on, or Legacy. And all of my friends, the 3 guys I hung out with the most, got put on Legacy, and I got put on Explorers. And that same year, I got a GameCube, and they got a PS2. And I never saw them for years. I was reconnecting with them at my 10-year reunion last week. And he was like, yeah, we went all the time. And then Springman, I was like, yeah, man, they divided us. But also, like, you got a PS2, and I got Luigi's Mansion.
Right. That's really...
That's strange.
It's so funny because, like, I can't imagine that happening now, like, dividing classes. And I'm sure that would piss off some really like high end, like, oh, you can't divide my, I want my son to have the right to go into any, like, whatever.
All right. And now it would come down to like, why are you doing this? Is it rain? Is it grades? And like, we never knew. They were just like, don't worry about it.
I was going to say, how awful would it be like 10 years down the road, you just realize like all the kids in this group were just dumb as rocks, and then the other ones were like smart as hell. Like the reason why I had groups is because
legitimately what we thought. We spent a lot of time being like, do I have worse grades than you guys? What? It's all, I had to make all new friends. Like I walked in day one and was like, yeah, they took all my friends and they're on the other side of the building. So like, what's up? Y'all like Marvel and Nintendo and The Simpsons? That's what I've got.
Yeah. That's what I'm proficient in. Is that what you are? No? Shit. No, I'm going to have a bad time.
You don't? All right. We tried.
Yeah, we tried. Oh my God. I would love to know that. I would love to have like a meeting room like in 8th grade. Everybody did that test at the end of the year and they're like, these kids are stupid as shit. All right. We're going to come up with something, guys. So that way nobody gets left behind. We're going to have this group and go to this. Dude, that's crazy. But I mean, again, like it's funny because that was when you actually had like more of a choice, because obviously, you know, when it was Sega or it was Genesis or Super Nintendo, it was 64. I would say there was the third one, but nobody gave a shit about Saturn. Like no one gave a shit.
Really messed up was for like 3 generations. You didn't get a new system. You made a tower on your Genesis.
Yeah, it was like Optimus Prime when you just got all the new shit. That's what happened.
Crazy. Like it was a Jenga game for a while to make that system happen.
With 3 power bricks, which was real fucking fun.
Yeah, like what were you why? Just release a new box.
Well,
just release a new box.
Well, they did eventually. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I always fucking forget. My brother-in-law Nick, I remember because I went to his house when I worked for him, and he had a game room that is of legend. Like this motherfucker's room was incredible. He had all this shit, all these NES games complete, all this shit, complete collections of all this shit. And I remember he had a CDX, which I didn't know what I think it's what it's called. It was basically the size of a boombox, not a boombox, a portable CD player. Really thick though.
Right.
But it had a Genesis cartridge above where the CDs go, and it had a CD, and it was like, this literally does. It's a Sega CD and it's a Genesis, but it was so fucking small. It was like smaller than like a DVD player. Like think a disc and then where a Genesis cartridge would go. That's how big the whole thing was. And I was like, when the fuck did this thing come out? This is crazy. I've never even seen this before. There was a lot of moments where I went into his game room and there was a lot of, I've never seen this before in my life moments. I was like, where the fuck did this come out? When did this, how, like, you know what I mean? But I mean, it's funny because they didn't want to piss off anybody and make them buy all new shit. They were just like, no, keep your Genesis. Let's just throw this fucking thing on there and see how it works.
We'll just be the awkward preteen that grew 3 feet before everybody else did.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Well, Nintendo was going to go that route with the Nintendo PlayStation. They were thinking about it, and then they were like, fuck you, Sony, which is probably the worst sentence Nintendo has ever said ever.
It's so weird to think about this like parallel universe where Sony and Nintendo are married.
Yeah.
Like and what's crazy, when you look at what they're both kind of doing now, like the Vita was supposed to be put your AAA games on this and go. And that's what the Switch is doing. Like they were kind of in the same mindset, but on 2 different roads. It would be like if Disney and Pixar never got together.
Which is really weird to think about. Well, I mean, and it's also weird to imagine that they weren't at first. Like, in my head, I just thought they were. And then, like, there was, like, news, like, Disney buys Pixar. I'm like, wait, what? The fuck? They were together the whole time? But again, they only put out shit on Disney. Disney was the only one that did their movie. So you just put 2 and 2 together, like, oh, this is how this works. And it's like, well, no, actually, like, they weren't owned by them. And it's crazy. And then Steve Jobs got real rich after that. So
Yeah, it worked out real nice for him. He had a very good habit of companies being like, we don't want you anymore, and then later being like, never mind, we would like you to come back.
Here's billions.
Times to him.
Yeah, here's billions with a B, bitch. Like, please come. Like, we want your company.
Back that truck up. We fucked up. Please come back.
Exactly. Yeah. So then, yeah, but it's funny because like that's like what I was saying earlier. That's when that divide happened because like obviously people didn't give a fuck about Sega, but then like. So PlayStation, it was PlayStation or 64. Like, those were your routes that you went. Like, you did not have a friend that had a Saturn. If you did, you're imagining it. Like, you're imagining it. Nobody had a Saturn.
One game, Nights into Dreams.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yay, that's it. So then, and that's when, so like, really when shit got real was like, start of Dreamcast. Because like, Dreamcast was kind of that like, in between. But then there was like, Dreamcast, PS2, but then Dreamcast died real fast. But then it was like, then it definitely went, you know, GameCube, Xbox, PS2. And that's when you were like, oh, where am I going?
The PS2 is where, and I've made this argument a few different times, and I think it might be different based on where you were. For me, the PS2 was where gaming became more mainstream because it was a DVD player. That to me is when it stopped being the like, oh, he plays video games, and it started being more of a hobby. And I think that was solidified with like the 360, the Wii, and the PS3. That's when like the jocks who pushed me into a locker were coming into my GameStop like, we want Call of Duty. And I was like, why are you here?
Yeah, exactly.
You throw footballs far and you get girls, and I sit here in my corner.
Yeah, I want Call of Duty.
Right. No. I saved the princess. I got all the Pokemon. I was here in the beginning, motherfucker.
Yeah, right. I would say gaming probably was mainstream, but then died away because, like, obviously there was that big crash where Atari fucked up and then Nintendo came back. But, like, there was a moment, though, where everyone and their fucking mother had a Nintendo. Like,
right.
Everyone had a Nintendo. But I think that's when, like, Super and Genesis and, like, those, like, that's where it started going back into just, like, more of a focus, like, not everybody got a Super, not everybody. Because, I mean, I was watching a YouTube video where parents were pissed because the Super Nintendo came out and it was a brand new system that did not play the old shit. Like, they were offended that Nintendo was asking you to drop that much money on brand new shit and nothing carried over.
I remember getting a Game Boy Color and wanting to get Pokemon Silver, and my mom and dad being like, I don't understand. You have a Game Boy and Pokemon. Like, there was a learning curve to really technology in general. And I think we've been inundated in it. Like, a new iPhone comes out every month, and we're like, upgrade whenever upgrades. But there was a time where they released an NES, and people were like, this is where it ends.
Yeah.
The first time they said, no, there's something new, a decent amount of people were like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
You did this already.
Right.
Like, they're just making more.
Right. And that, I think Nintendo saw that video, or not Nintendo, I think Sega saw that news article and was like, we can't get rid of the Genesis, just fucking add to it. That's probably what happened. I'm just kidding. It's probably not what happened, but Sega's just fucking crazy for what they did.
Well, you know, they do what Nintendo doesn't, and Nintendo released building blocks. They also did what Nintendo doesn't and stopped being a company.
Right, exactly. Hey, guess what? How was your last Sonic game? Oh yeah, fucking trash. Anyways.
Every time.
Fucking
Every
trash.
time you think they're like, they've got it now.
They got it now. No, it's fucking trash. But no, so then like, yeah, like, you know, that's where the big divide happened though, and it's funny because it was right in high school for me when PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube, all those came out, and I actually stopped playing games altogether because I was too busy skateboarding. I was just like, video games and chicks, that was way more fun than any fucking video game was at the time, except for Tony Hawk games. Those came out every October, and I shut the hell up and I started playing. But I didn't even get a PS2. I didn't have an Xbox at launch. Like, I had a PS1. I was one of those kids, and I felt so fucking, like, lame asking for it. I was like, do you guys have Tony Hawk 3 on PS1? And they're like, what the fuck? PS1? I'm like, yeah, PS1. Because, I mean, I didn't care enough to get a PS2 because I was just not playing it as much, but I still wanted to play the Tony Hawk games. Those were the only games that I wanted to play because of, like, just, oh shit, you could revert now. Shit.
Yeah.
This is the best ever.
Yeah, those, Oh, those Tony Hawk games, man. Talk about just the best thing ever and the biggest 180 when those dropped off. That just stops.
It's funny because it got me out of video games because I was like, I want to try skateboarding. And I got really good at skateboarding really fast. And I was just like, I don't think I want to play video games anymore. I just want to skateboard. And then like my buddies and I would just, the only games we'd play are the fucking Tony Hawk games and just learn about new bands that were fucking awesome every time a new one came out because those soundtracks were so good.
I love that it's almost like a generational gamer thing that so many people I know are like, I got into music from Tony Hawk.
Right.
And I remember the first time I said that, I was like, what a stupid thing to say. And everyone was like, yeah, that Superman song by Goldfinger, man, that got me into ska. And there was so much punk pop on that. I don't think there was a Blink-182 song, but that was the next step, and I just stayed there.
I want to say later down the road there might have been. But
there had to have been. That was
probably. I actually
whole time where it was skating and Blink and
yep.
That was the early 2000s and 90s.
My favorite band I had heard before. Okay, so my favorite band's Rise Against, which they're from Chicago.
Yes! One of my Desert Island bands. Someone just asked me, 5 bands on Desert Island. Rise Against was on there.
Yes. So, so you, obviously, Chicago. They're from Chicago. I actually grew up in Rockford, Illinois, which is trash.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's trash. It's real bad.
I mean, it's trash, but I know
it's real bad. Don't ever go there. Don't go there.
I don't.
It's harsh.
I've been there. It's not my favorite.
No, it's not. It's so bad.
I grew up in Glenview, the smallest suburb.
There you go. Like, so, they would come to a skate park that I went to all the time. Like, there is videos on YouTube of them playing at the skate park I would frequent all the time. So I knew of them. And then, Like the Angel was in, I want to say Tony Hawk 3.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, holy shit, this is the fucking band I saw live while I skated. This is nuts that they're in this game. And then I started listening to them and I was like, yeah, they're officially my favorite band. Like, I fucking fell in love with them. And then all their CDs, newer CDs, but...
yeah, I would say...
You turn into the old guy, though. You know what I mean? Like, you turn into that old guy. Like,
they got, and this is a gaming podcast, not a music podcast, but I feel like they got around, like, God, what CD was it that had, like, Black Market on it? I don't want to be here anymore.
That was shit. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's the CD that fell off. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, that was where I was like, all right, guys, we're getting, like, real political, and I get it, like, say your thing, but, like, I just kind of miss when you guys were pissed off and yelling at the world. I saw them 4 years strong in Bad Religion at University of Illinois in Champaign, and they stopped their show to be like, yeah, there's like donations outside for like this charity and this charity, and I was like, I get it,
yeah,
but also like,
name of the CD is The Black Market. That's what I thought it was. Yeah, The Black Market. That's the name of the CD.
Black Market.
Yeah. But yeah, well, it's funny though too, because even though like that relates to gaming though as well, because there's old guys out there that are like, they'd watch you play games and be like, back in my day, Galaga was the shit. Nobody fucking, what's this Mario bullshit? You know what I mean? Like, you always had that same thing. So it's like, also too, you'll get into and I think I've hit there. You get to a point where new music can fuck right off because you don't want to hear anything besides the shit you heard when you grow up. And I'm pretty much at that. That's why I like podcasts now more often, because I listen to new music and I'm just like,
dude, I'm the same way. I go to work every day and I replay the same Fall Out Boy CD, Blink-182 CD, Rise Against.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just like, and like, I like those songs and I enjoy them. Dude, when I started skating again, my skate playlist went hard and I was like, every flooding memory of that skate park I went to, I was like, nostalgia.
I think I know vaguely what you're talking about. I remember a skate park in Rockford.
Yep.
And but I was so young then, and I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Now it's gone. Sad face. Mike Kaiser, you're the best. He was the owner of the park. He was awesome. So we'll turn this back into a gaming podcast instead of a Rise Against Skateboard music podcast. So then you stuck with GameCube. A bunch of your other buddies went PlayStation. So then in the group that your school forced you into, did you actually meet new friends who had a GameCube, or were you kind of that kid who had like, I have GameCube, and everyone's like, the hell's wrong with that kid?
More the second. So junior high and high school were kind of weird for me with gaming because after my few friends went PlayStation, they also kind of stopped doing it. I don't want to say hardcore, but it became like super casual for them.
Right.
Where for me, it was like once a month I had a new game. And it became the girls I knew, all of them, up until probably my junior year when I started working at GameStop and met new friends. It very much became like, Blake likes video games, Star Wars, and Spider-Man, and those are for children. Right. And the narrative around my gaming in Springman, my junior high school, when I was 12 and 13, was the GameCube is kiddie. That was the word around it. I don't know if this was the narrative around it everywhere else, but for me, everything I heard was, it's the kiddie system.
Right.
It's kiddie, blah, 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 blah. And you kind of fight against that, and you're also kind of like that's where you kind of become either like, do I conform and just go buy GTA 3, or am I like, fuck you, I want to play Mario Sunshine? And I very much was like, well, fuck you, I want to play Mario Sunshine and Wind Waker. Like,
right.
Go away. Like, and then, then Melee got popular, and like I found a few people, but that was the group. Like, there wasn't like a big gamer group. There were like the five of us that kind of bled in and out of like the skater kids and the sporty kids and the gamer kids, and like the four of us all had a GameCube and one of us had a PS2, and that was it.
Right. And it sucks because I think the only reason why the GameCube caught that flack is just because those games weren't on that system. They were on the other two. Yeah. So like Grand Theft Auto, of course it was on PS2 first and then ported over to Xbox. But I think it's just because there was just more, especially when you were growing up, like especially if you're in high school. You know what I mean? Like if you're in like junior high school, whatever, you are growing up and you're trying to be more mature, even though you're stupid as fuck and you don't know anything. Like you don't know shit. You're 14, you're 15. You don't have an informed opinion yet. You haven't lived life. So you just, again, you have that angst. And I think when PS2 and Xbox came out, when there was more mature games on there, when there was like all this games with blood and fucking all this crazy shit that was happening, prostitutes, which by the way, if you ever said prostitutes in a game before, they'd be like, what? Nope. And there's no way. There's no. Like, that's when shit started getting way more mature. But also, too, it was the time, it was the era, like, everything was more risque, everything was more sexualized, everything was more violence. And
that was also being, like, 13. It was, like, 2002 and 2003. So that was a very weird year to grow up in because people went from watching Batman Beyond to the Chappelle Show.
Right.
And it's like, guys, there was a middle ground here from like being a kid to that.
Right.
That everyone kind of tried to skip, and then I feel like nostalgically came back to.
Right.
Like now the conversation on the GameCube is like, oh my god, it had Rogue Leader and Wave Race and Melee, and it's like, where was all this, guys? What?
Yeah. I will always bring it up, and I will always defend my brother-in-law, Nick. He said Wind Waker was cool from the fucking beginning. He would tell everybody and their mother Wind Waker was awesome, and it was so good. And I remember so many people shitting on him because of the art style, because they didn't like the cell shading, they didn't like all this. And then, all of a sudden, Wind Waker gets an HD re-release on the Wii U, and everyone talks about how much they loved Wind Waker. And my brother-in-law was like, fuck right off all of you, because I told you guys this game was awesome so long ago and no one fucking listened. Now all of a sudden you guys love it, go to hell. And I remember, like, he mentioned that to me. He's like, isn't it funny how so many people thought Wind Waker was so good now? I'm like, no, you thought it was cool back in the day, and I will defend you. I will tell everybody that you did that. But I
think the GameCube really proved, in an era where it was underpowered and had many discs, it proved now, 10 years later, 15 years later,
right,
that art direction will outlast graphics. Things like Pikmin, Wind Waker, even like Rogue Leader, like they did so many games that took a direction that outlive HD graphics.
Right.
That you can always just put on and be like, yep, no, Wind Waker is still gorgeous, and it will always be gorgeous.
Well, it's funny now because you look back at certain games that were trying the realism graphics, and at the time you're like, this game looks fucking crazy. This game looks real. And dude, I played Resident Evil 1. Okay, so I played the Xbox One version, right? Resident Evil 1, the remaster, and it looked good. I was like, cool, this looks nice. So then that was an up-res version of the remaster for GameCube. Okay, so it looked better. So then I went back and looked at YouTube videos of the original PlayStation 1, and they look horrendous. They look, and again, back then, that was like, get the fuck out of here. Games will never look this good again. And then, like, you look back, and that's what sucks, because sometimes that's so jarring that it throws you off. But, you know, that's why I think 16-bit era games, they had that charm of still being kind of hand-drawn. They weren't trying to go super realistic. Right. Yeah, the 3D, obviously 3D modeling wasn't around. You know, it was more hand-drawn sprites, all that shit. But like games like Symphony of the Night, that game is going to be so much more remembered than other 3D-based games, just because you'll see them and go, what the fuck, man? What is this?
Well, it's even why something like Yoshi's Island comes to mind, of a game from the 16-bit era that will just always kind of stand out because it looked different. And I think now you have things like Cuphead and Shovel Knight that are like, oh, nothing else looks like this. Right. And now I think we've gaming, and I say this working in like the entertainment, the film and TV world, and I always say that gaming is very young compared to what we're doing.
Oh, of course,
and the amount of stuff that gaming has done in the 20, 30 years it's been around compared to the century that film's been around is insurmountable. Right. And I think now it's aged enough that we can see things like Cuphead, like Yoshi's Woolly World. I'm trying to think if there's any other like big art. Limbo comes to mind. Shovel Knight. These things that are like, oh, this isn't like beautiful HD realism graphics like Horizon, but nothing else I'm looking at looks like this.
Right. Yeah.
Which is where, I mean, other like movies have that same advantage sometimes. An animated movie will come out and people will be like, oh, this just looks different. Or Blade Runner was like, the color palette is different. Let's see that.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, that also drags people, or not, I wouldn't say drags people, but that it intrigues people's interest and everything. Because, like, I can tell you that if you told me Cuphead, which was fucking amazing, by the way, if you told me Cuphead didn't have that art style, just was a normal 3D model, 2.5D shooter, I wouldn't have given a fuck. I would have been like, nope, I don't give a shit about this. It's another one of those games. And as soon as like that sizzle reel, which felt like 9 years ago when they first showed it, and it was literally in a sizzle reel where it was just like, it was shown for like 5 or 7 seconds on screen. Yep. And I immediately was like, pause that. What the fuck is that? That made me catch everything else. I didn't give a shit about anything else in that sizzle reel. I was like, what is this Cuphead game? And then I was blown away by it. And that it's good because now games don't have to be ultra realistic. You know, Inside was awesome. Limbo was awesome. I'm trying to remember other games. There's other games too that are out there though. Like there's games that are quirky and just weird that are starting to catch more people's attention and stuff. Like, not necessarily just art style, but just also in ridiculous gameplay and shit. I think of Octodad, which that game, it's just, you fucking play it and you're like, how does this, what is this game? This is ridiculous. But I mean, some people don't give a shit about them. Some people just like some people like Transformers still, the movie Transformers, even the, anyways, I won't get into that. But I mean, like some people like a
whole other podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. That'll be the Rise Against Music, Skateboarding, Transformers Sucks podcast. No, but
call me. I will be there for that.
There you go. But no, it's just like the different art styles or different gameplay now has gotten attention. And that's like you said, the same thing though with movies and stuff. Like, but yeah, like movies, it's a century old. Gaming has done a lot in 30 years and it's only.
I very often say that the people who are like locked down in like just film and TV should be terrified because they have more innovative storytelling in the gaming medium than any other medium, period.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the other thing too is it's it's interactive, which is the thing. Like you know,
Yeah.
with stories, you're just given a story and you have to accept it. Whereas, you know, games, sometimes you have a choice of how it goes. And that's why Telltale games, some people love them, and that's all they fucking play because of that, like, story driven, and gameplay is like I'm not gonna say non-existent, but very minimal. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of like required skill or shit. Like, I don't know, you know, people do that.
It goes back to the Monster Mansion and Monkey Island, old LucasArts stuff. But I mean, you look at something like BioShock, that whole story is told only if you want it to be told. You can go find all the audiobooks or you cannot. And everybody, as long as I've been in LA, has been like, we need to adapt BioShock. And I've always been like, no, the way the story is told does not work in a movie. The main character doesn't talk, which I immediately think makes it impossible to do. But I was like, but you can take this world, because what you have to start looking at, the world of Rapture, the world of BioShock, is meant to be told in a video game. But something like the fall of Rapture, that would be kind of a boring game, would be a fascinating movie.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's also why video game movies, for the most part, suck, because you're trying to condense more than 2 hours into 2 hours, and sometimes way more than 2 hours into 2 hours. And, you know, it sucks because you're not going to be able to do it well. Like, I'm trying to think of a good video game movie.
Angry Birds is the best one I think we have. I'm serious. I think it's the best one we have.
It's so fucked up because I didn't even think about Angry Birds being a video game first. I was just like, oh yeah, that was a video game, wasn't it? I forgot all about that. You know what's funny? Angry Birds movie, not bad at all. Really fun. No. Way funnier than I thought it was going to be.
Where did this come from?
Yeah. No, it's just like, because the thing that sucks is like, you try to take something that a user spends 9, 10, 15, 20, 25 hours playing and throw it into 2 hours. The problem is like, if people watch a movie like that as face value and not know shit about anything else, then they might see that's acceptable, or they might think, oh, that's fun. But when you're trying to target people to go see an Assassin's Creed movie who fucking played Assassin's Creed, and then the movie is just not like it, like, it's just, you know, they based it more in reality more than more about the animus and all that shit than the actual game. And it's just weird because I think it's going to be hard for people to make any type of thing like that.
It is. And I always kind of look at comic book movies, because there was an era of comic book movies where they were bad. They were terrible, awful movies. David Hasselhoff was Nick Fury. Captain America was riding on a motorcycle. It wasn't very good.
Right.
Then you got Blade, and people were like, this is all right. Then you got X-Men and Spider-Man. Yep. And both of those movies, what I think people really forget is that Sam Raimi and Bryan Singer, respectively, took the core of those characters and said, fuck the rest.
Yeah. Which that's what you need to do.
To make that meaningful. And now you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe where they're sort of doing the same thing. Like anybody, like, you can very much watch Spider-Man Homecoming and be like, well, the suit never talked to Peter, but who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Still a coming of age story. That's what Spider-Man was. And I say this as Spider-Man being my favorite comic book character. I know that suit never talked to him. I didn't want it to talk to him. We have to kind of get to a point, I think, with video game movies where we're finding the people who know why the game worked.
Right.
Assassin's Creed didn't work in 2007 because it had a great story or great lore or even great gameplay. The first Assassin's Creed is not that.
It was really trash.
But what was great about it was climbing up to the top of a building and looking at the whole, the Crusades in HD, and you could
jumping off.
And then jumping on.
Just, there was something weird about that where it was just like, man, this is really fun to get up there. Then you do the Eagle Vision, and then they do that Michael Bay 360 camera spin, and then you're just like, wow, you jump and you hear that. I'm like, oh.
Horror and this, and it's like, well, the rest of it's kind of nuts. Like, that entire story is kind of nuts. You want to adapt it to a movie, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Well, again, they're gonna keep trying. Mario's getting made into a movie now from the Minion people, so
I have many opinions on this. If anybody's gonna do it, that's probably the best team.
Right. They could figure it out. But again, nobody's blamed Mario for. Well, they did make a Mario Bros. Movie, but that was. Listen, I talk about that. But no, I think they could just take those characters because people know the characters so well and just be like, let's just throw them in a fucking situation and just figure out shit. Actually, you know what? I strike that. Best video game movie is Wreck-It Ralph. It's not based on a movie or a game, but that fucking tied in every video game thing. Awesome. It
is the best movie about video games. Yes.
But not based off a license of a video game.
100% agree with you.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that because I remember just all the little Easter eggs and shit. So, okay. Yep. Back to gaming. So then, did you continue down? So, obviously, you got made fun of for GameCube and all that shit. Did you go 360 route, or did you just stick with PlayStation and Nintendo, or did you, what happened there?
I went the 360 route. So then, in high school, I met a very good friend of mine, Dan. He's one of the few people I still talk to from high school, so he's a great guy. If he's listening, thank you, Dan. And he was much more of a. I think the best way to explain him is right now he really wants me to help him make a video game. He knows all the coding, and he wants me to help him with the story and design and all those kind of things. His brain worked for tech and computer science and math. And my brain worked for photography and acting and film and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So when we met, he had an Xbox. It was modded. We ended up taking that Xbox when the 360 came out, and we built an arcade cabinet and just modded it to have everything on it. So in his basement was a big arcade that we built and painted that just had a controller, and you could do whatever you wanted. Sonic, Mario, Pac-Man, Galaga.
Nice.
Who cares? It was awesome. That was a year before I started working at GameStop, which is when everything kind of just the door blew open.
Right.
So with Dan, I ended up buying an Xbox, playing Halo with him and a bunch of people. And then 2005 is when the 360 came out. I actually wrote it down on the note that I had for the other stuff we were talking about. The exact date was November 2nd, 2005. So it was 2005. Which would be the end of my sophomore year. And I bought a 360. I got the second batch. I got Call of Duty, got Xbox Live. And that was where, it's like you said, that's where I think gaming really kind of switched gears in a lot of ways. Right. It became online and it became competitive. And I mean, this was a year before Google bought YouTube, so there weren't Let's Plays and Twitches and all that. But
Sure.
This was very much when it was still a really social experience. And I think the 360, and that's when for me it did become kind of back to everyone's coming over to play Halo and everyone's coming over to play Skate and someone's going to do this and this and this. And so then that road became that. And then for me it was the 360 and the Wii. And I bought a PS3 for Metal Gear 4 because Metal Gear was one of my favorite franchises and I needed that game.
Right. That was I went Xbox route more just because Halo 2 sucked me in and online, and I was all about it on OG Xbox, and then because I can't say Xbox One anymore, thanks Microsoft. And
yeah, really, they cannot fucking name that thing.
Fucked up. Anyways,
just do it.
I remember when they named it, I was like, well, what do we call the old one now? Anyways,
right now you have Xbox One X and S on the shelf.
That's okay. That's not confusing at all, right? But no, I went 360 route, and I remember I didn't dislike PlayStation because I had a PS2 and all that stuff when I worked at the game store, but it was just the online community is what that was your hanging out with your buddies. That was you after work, not, of course, I was old enough to go drink, but I didn't. So I was just yo, you guys want to play Gears tonight? Yeah, let's play Gears. All right. That was that's what we did. So, I mean, that's when, like you said, it became more social. Then Call of Duty came out, and then fucking the world stopped when Modern Warfare came out, and, everybody and their mother was just playing that shit.
Well, in the 360, I think just in every conceivable way, and people will probably disagree with me, and I don't care, because I will argue this to my death, whooped the PS3 straight up and down until the tail end of that generation.
Yeah.
When this generation started, it was a $400 system versus a $600 system that came in with an unproven media in Blu-ray. No one cared.
Yeah.
It ended up being an HD DVD. No one cared.
Yeah.
Detachable hard drive could connect to your PC and your phone. I remember I was blown away. I could just plug in my iPhone with a USB or my iPod or my Zune or wherever the fuck you had. Music would come out of it. And I could play that music while I played a video game.
Yeah, no,
that was insane.
Yeah. And
like, that's crazy. You could be online, private chatting. They nailed that online community. I could play Fallout 3 while my friend was playing Dead Space, and we would just be talking about girls. And we'd be playing two incredibly different games. It was like we were on the phone.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was so good. And
when it showed up, nothing.
Well, yeah, like PlayStation again, like, and it's funny because like lifetime sales, PlayStation eventually caught up because the only thing that saved a PlayStation was the fact that people don't like Xbox in Japan at all. So that was the only thing that really saved it. Overall lifetime sales. PlayStation though, the thing that sucks is like they were just two very different consoles. So like the Xbox was your social console. That was your console you went online with, you play Call of Duty with, you fucked around with your friends and party chat with. Like that was that. But then like PS3 had like ridiculously good single player games, like such good single player games, especially Last of Us as like that end cap of like. It's
like I said, that tail end, like that was a long generation. That was the first 10-year generation we saw.
Right.
Which is crazy when you really think about it. When you really think about what that means in terms of like the history of gaming, it's the majority of it.
Yeah. Like,
close
like
to
they
it.
did. It's just weird because now I'm not gonna say it's the other way around, but like obviously PlayStation flipped the script because Xbox severely fucked up that first whole year of talking. Every time Microsoft opened their mouth, they were fucking up something. So yeah, I blame Don Matrick for all of it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that guy can go burn in hell. He ruined Xbox. Phil Spencer's making it better, but god damn it, Don.
He's working on it. They're slowly but surely, they're chipping away.
Dude, I still prefer Xbox overall just because of that social aspects, like me and my buddies and stuff. The controller on Xbox.
I like the controller more.
It's so good.
It's into the story to me.
It's so good. I don't know where like a DualShock didn't feel good, but like the Xbox controller is fucking amazing.
And I just figured this out because I don't have anything 4K in my house, but I messed around with some of it when I was home in Chicago. The PS4 Pro does not have a 4K Blu-ray player in it.
It sure doesn't.
What the fuck, Sony?
Hey, guess what? Sony owns the patent on that too.
Y'all pioneered this shit.
Yeah.
Like
that was literally when I saw that when the S came out, and I remember it said that, and my head tilted, and I was like, well, the Pro's probably gonna have it. And then when the Pro didn't have it, I was like, huh? Like, the fuck is wrong? Like, you own it. You own the patent. You own the licensing right. You own it. But you're going to let your competitor pay you the licensing fee and sell that as a benefit over your own console. I'm like,
it's crazy. Huh? It's crazy.
And of course,
that
Sony
literally to me is Sony being like, 4K won't catch on. And it's like, well, guys.
You sell 4K TVs, guys.
It eventually
what
will.
Are you talking about? Yeah. Like, I don't know if Sony realizes this. I don't know if they talk to each other. Sony sells 4K TVs. Maybe they should get their shit together. But whatever. I mean,
Sony that I don't think talk as much as they should if they talk at all, but that's a different thing.
So, as it is now, what are you playing now?
Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Right now it's Mario Odyssey. I've been better this year. I usually build up a pretty big backlog and don't get around to half of it. This year I was real good about canceling a lot of things.
Good for you.
Just money and new jobs and all that stuff.
Play your fucking backlog, people. Stop buying new shit. You don't need it.
There's so much new stuff.
There is so much new stuff. Fucking buy one of them, not 10. Like, buy one and fucking enjoy that and play your backlog, people. God.
Right.
I don't, and I'm not talking to you PC people. I get it. If a game's $2 on Steam, you're gonna fucking buy it. I get it.
Of course.
I get it. But like, I get to a point where I load up before Christmas. Black Friday happens. That first half of the year, I don't try not to buy new shit at all. I'm just like, I just got 7 new games for Christmas. I'm gonna blast through these and then get rid of them and maybe eventually get to the new shit.
Yeah. Well, and once you've kind of gamed long enough, you can kind of predict when the 2-month lull will be.
Yep.
And it's like, great, now I can do all this.
It's June to August. There's your 2-month lull.
Always.
It's always June to August. You fucking start playing your backlog.
I feel like February is pretty dead too, usually.
Except for now it's not, because everybody's... Dude, January to May now is fucking chaos.
Stupid.
It's so stupid. Far Cry 5 is coming out in February, and I'm like, I forgot all about you. Until all of a sudden I was looking online, and I'm like, oh, fuck, Far Cry.
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta get through my first person shooter fix now. Like I have to, that's why I'm playing Wolfenstein now. I'm gonna get through Wolfenstein. I just got Prey from one of my buddies, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta get through Prey as well because I want to get all the FPS shit done now, so that way I'm not playing like back to back FPSs when Far Cry comes out, because I'm not gonna want to do shit.
Yes, well, I think so. It's Odyssey, the South Park game. I'm kind of playing Pokemon Moon, Ultra Moon.
Right.
And I'm at the very end of Metroid. And that's more than enough.
That's more than enough.
Oh, Evil Within 2, but I've barely touched that because it's very, very hard. And I'm sort of playing through it with somebody, so I really only do it when they're over and we
Which
just
game?
switch up. Evil Within 2.
Fuck, I bought that. I bought that.
It's very hard. It's not an easy game.
That's okay.
And I beat all of Call of Duties on Veteran.
Yeah, no, I'm playing Wolfenstein on a harder difficulty, and it's pissing me off. And I looked at the achievements, and I'm like, I'm only getting 10 more gamer score for beating the game on this one higher difficulty up. I'm thinking like, I might
You're better man than I. I am out of the achievement and trophy race.
Oh, I'm not like I have to get them all, but like I'll look and be like, this is gonna be worth it. But like I'm playing Wolfenstein and getting fucking wrecked so hard, and I'm like, I might bump this down just to play and be able to beat this. So, if people wanted to check you out on PlayStation or on Twitter or on anything you want, what would you want them to check you out on? I know you do podcasts as well, so feel free to, whore yourself out right now.
Yeah, if we want to get into the plug stuff, I'm on PlayStation at QuakeBorder55, which is the oldest name I have. That goes back to like AIM, which is dead now.
Don't worry, you can change it, right? Oh wait.
Yeah, which is fine. I kind of like having that memory.
There you go.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at as always Blake, and then I do 2 podcasts. I do Hollywood Already Did It. That's up every Monday, and we talk about movie reboots, remakes, and sequels. So we'll take something like The Punisher is going up on tomorrow. The Punisher will be going up. Where we'll kind of take that, but we compare it to the adaptation. How well did it adapt? Do we need to tell this story again? It's a little bit different. We try to get more into it than just reviewing and talking about it. And we'll do any reboot, remake, or sequel for that. And the other one is up every Friday, and it's called One More Drink. And it is, I still don't know how to describe it to people. It's like our co-host April says that it's about life, love, and everything nerdy. And I think that it is pure chaos. It is 4 of us sitting down, and we hit record, and we see what happens. And we try to be funny, and we'll talk from things from dating to candy bars to comic books to marriage to high school reunions and just whatever is there.
So, it's a wonder you're a fan of the comedy button.
I was gonna say, if people know the comedy button, it's a light version of that.
Yeah, comedy button's like that, except for crank to 1,000. Those fucking people are they're the best.
Yeah, it's very insane. We just recorded one before we did this one, and we started off talking about whether or not we thought Batman would be good in bed. I think I'm much more interested in a Bruce Wayne who is not. And we ended that conversation with dumb movie crossovers we want to see after talking about Men in Black and 22 Jump Street happening.
There you go.
I think with Gremlins and the Muppets.
Jesus. That would be... Yeah. Hey, everybody, think about that for a moment. Jesus Christ.
So that's where we were at.
Gotcha. Well, and thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for wanting to be on the show. It was awesome chatting with you and sharing all your stories, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I will come back. It is not hard to convince me to talk about video games. I didn't even get into the whole list of things I was going to hit on. So if you want me back, I will come back.
Definitely. I want to do maybe side episodes of like people who worked at game stores and just have like this nostalgia episode of game store talk. So we can do that one day.
Oh, dude, I'll go down that rabbit hole for a long time. We'll get our 14 Rise Against and GameStop podcast.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You have a good night.
All right. And again, thank you, Blake, for being on the show. If you guys want to check any of his stuff out, I will have links to his podcast and his Twitter, so you can feel free to check out his work that he does. Again, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. If you guys want to be a guest just like he was, again, send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast. Again, leave me a rating on iTunes or just go ahead and send me a tweet. Let me know what you think about these kind of longer episodes. Do you like the ranting and raving? Do you want me to keep it more kind of closer to what the gaming aspect of it is? Feel free to let me know. I enjoy these either way. I enjoy shooting the shit with people and enjoying just talking about all sorts of stuff. So, again, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate everybody who downloads the show each and every week, and I'll catch you guys next week with another episode. See ya.